So the issue with this plan is that it won't function as intended. If we decriminalize drugs more than they already are, then people will not learn from their mistakes. After a second offense for the same crime, repercussions must occur in order to implement change in behavior. If we allow drug users to continuously relapse because they don't fear prosecution and know they can just return to treatment once again, then this will be the factor that prolongs recovery time and racism in healthcare. Changing the federal drug policy will cause states to come up with new laws as well, which will be timely and costly. Federal legislation of controlled substances has never been universally embraced, and plenty of cities, counties, and possibly even whole states will probably write their own laws criminalizing or otherwise restricting drug sales, use, or production. It won't be a straightforward process either, since the federal drug schedule has been used so long to lump in various drugs together like marijuana and heroin, both Schedule I narcotics. States will have to come up with their own systems for associating drugs with legal penalties, try to duplicate the old federal schedules and associated laws, or else treat each substance as a unique case, legalizing or prohibiting according to anything by the popular vote or local interest or even anti-drug crusading. Federal legislation will ultimately not so much create a new legal standard as it will deter to the states and localities on matters of regulation. This plan is also too complex to function well, giving everyone freedom to continue their drug habit because they know they won't face any consequences will lead America down a slippery slope. The Obama administration current drug policies are well planned out and reflect science and experiment. Some of his policies are the Fair Sentencing Act and the Second Chance Act, which I will explain later. Imagine if every time you knowingly did something wrong and someone just kept picking up the pieces for you, would you continue this action? In March 2007, Antonio Costa, former executive director of the United Nations Office of Drug and Crime, drew attention to the drug policy of Sweden. He argued that Sweden is an excellent example of why we should not decriminalize drugs. Drug use is just a third of European average, while spending on drug control is 3 times the average they spend on regular policies. For 3 decades, Sweden has had consistent and coherent drug policies, regardless of which is in power. There is a strong emphasis on prevention. Drug laws have been progressively tightened, and extensive treatment and rehabilitation opportunities are available to users. The police take drug crime seriously. Governments and societies must keep their nerve and avoid being swayed by misguided notions of tolerance. They must not lose sight of the fact that illicit drugs are dangerous. That is why the world agreed to restrict them. Some of the disadvantages of the plan would be completely decriminalizing drugs will lead to an increase in their use along with social costs. Penalties or even the threat of them frequently spur individuals struggling with addiction or substance abuse to get the treatment they might need. In fact, more than 1 of all treatment referrals in the U.S. are currently from the criminal justice system. Most of the people who need treatment for addiction but don't get it don't feel they need it. NSDUH reports in 2013 more than 95% of those who needed specialty substance abuse didn't receive it because they didn't think they needed it. Challenges in drug workplace would be another disadvantage. For one thing, it's already common for individuals to use prescription drugs and even abuse prescription drugs because they don't show up on urine tests. Adopting a zero tolerance policy is typical in many high risk or high responsibility occupations such as civil service positions, the military, or healthcare like your doctor. Provides clarity governing drug use upon hiring, but may need some amendments regarding historical drug use. So I think we all agree that it's important that your doctor, someone, or your surgeon does not have a history of drug use. So if he's called on because you need an emergency surgery, then he's not going to be intoxicated. Legalizing drugs will also increase their use. The illicit drug alcohol user rates are as high as 80 to 90% in populations over 14 years of age, and tobacco has historically had current rates up to 60% of adult populations. Yet, percentages currently using illicit drugs in OECD countries are generally below 1%, cannabis being 10%. In 2001, Australia's study of 18 to 29-year-olds suggests that prohibition deters illicit use. 29% of those who had never used cannabis cited the illegality of the substance as their reason for never using the drug, while 19% of those said that they stopped using the drug because it was illegal. Controls and prohibitions helped keep the prices higher. Higher prices help keep rates relatively low, since drug use, especially among young people, is known to be a sensitive price. The relationship between pricing and the rates of youth substance is well established with respect to alcohol and cigarette taxes. There is literature showing that increases in the price of cigarettes triggers declines in use. So if drugs become easier to make, then more people will start selling them, prices will drop because people want to compete with their competitors, and it's going to be easier for us to buy. I mean, how many of you have smoked weed, and then how many of you have done cocaine? Because cocaine's very expensive and bad for you, but it's also very expensive. The U.S. Drug Enforcement Administration also says there's a growing misconception that some illegal drugs can be taken safely. Your dealers might say, oh, ecstasy can be used to enlighten your mind, or just have, or acid, be like really profound thoughts, and like you understand why the earth is, I don't even know, but that's another example. It will also lead Americans to think that anything will generate tax income. Anything that will generate tax income should be legalized. The economic argument for drug legalization says, legalize drugs and generate tax income. This argument is gaining favor, and the administration seek new sources of revenue during the economic crisis. If we're going to start legalizing drugs, then it sounds morally okay to legalize things like sex trafficking or slavery. Thank you.